Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Talha Rafiq.
My name is Badruddin Muhammad.
And together we run the College Muslim podcast. Um, Today we're going to be discussing a topic that I think many of us have talked about and thought of before within our friend groups. And I'll let Badruddin introduce it.
So today's topic is going to be practicing for appearances. Now this is one of those nebulous topics that we love here called the College Muslim, because I think it embodies a wide spectrum of things. It can include strictly practicing for appearances, which can be attributed to like being a munafiq, saying being Muslim outside but not actually having that in your heart. But then it can also mean, even as practicing Muslims, sometimes we, in the back of your head, shaitan's always whispering in the back of the back of your head, and you always hear things like in the back of your head, maybe I'm doing something because someone else is seeing me do something, and maybe I do feel it, maybe I feel it half in my heart, maybe half I'm doing it for appearances, and that's something that we're going to the complexities of that is something we're going to dive into today, inshallah.
Yeah. I think that's also more prevalent for people born into Muslim families, and having a certain level of expectations to hit. While in reality, everyone's kind of on their own trajectory with Islam, so you can never predict just because it's a Muslim family that the kid is going to be on your level of deen, if you're the parent. And so outside factors, depending on if you're active in the masjid, like pressures there, all that kind of stuff can impact why you're actually practicing. And even if you're practicing, it could be detrimental in a sense that you don't realize why you're praying. And I've seen a lot of people face that dilemma when they get older. They're like, wait, why am I even doing this, right? Or they don't feel like their heart's in it, and it's because they never kind of reflected and they were really just practicing because it was for everyone else, not even for themselves.
Right? I think it also happens a lot, especially when you're in public places maybe, and you're practicing in public places. Like obviously, this is also why I remember someone telling me that like the prayers that you do in private are really powerful. Because there's no one watching you, but you are still putting your heart out there, and you're still prostrating in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and giving your all. But when we're in public, there's I mean, it exists. There's always that idea of like someone's watching, someone human is watching. Obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching, and we know that, but at the same time there's also people watching, and it's easy to fall prey to that, to be like, am I doing my sujood right? Is my sujood long enough? Is my ruku long enough? Am I reading long enough surahs? Am I standing up straight? Maybe it's just me, but
or am I even praying right, or am I even praying like by myself away like if you're like if you have like an MSA, right? So we're all active there. We pray there when we're all in the room. But do we pray, like you said, alone in our room when we're not with everyone else? And so in a lot of ways it's a good way too. Like it's a good type of tool to use to like increase your iman and increase things you want to do. Like if you do want to pray more, great ways by putting yourself in a group that does pray.
But the way I kind of wrote that is like using the judgment of others or the viewpoints of others as a way to keep yourself in check or to keep others in check. And that's, I think, where the difference lies, is if you're using the like if I'm using the pressure I feel, or like the pressure I put up on myself to be like, oh, there's people watching, I gotta make sure I'm like doing my ruku right, my sujood right, and like put some extra attention on that. And if I'm doing that for myself and to keep myself in check, that's a different kind of thing. That's like encouragement from your peers to be a better Muslim because you want to be a better Muslim. But if sometimes you lean towards the side of, or even myself, I lean towards the side of being like, maybe I should pray sunnah because there's people watching, not because I actually want to pray. Right. That's entering into dangerous territory where it's like, I'm practicing for the appearance of other people and if they weren't here, I wouldn't be doing this. Or I wouldn't want to do this either, kind of thing. So that's the fine line that we're going to toe. And I also want to emphasize the fact that in this episode, we're talking about, this is a very personal thing. It's more for each individual to reflect upon themselves on what they're doing, not for us to judge on other people and be like, is that person actually not praying when we're here, or are they not fasting when we're here? Or like you said, in the MSA, we might see someone coming in for prayers, but if this episode isn't to talk about, oh, that person might be coming in for MSA, but keep in mind they might not be coming. That's not for us to do. That doesn't even matter. It's more for ourselves I believe, for ourselves to look at it and be like, when I do the daily religious acts that I do, and even the not specifically religious acts that I do, am I doing them because I want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or am I doing them for other people? And why am I doing? And if there is the factor of other people being in there, is that because I want to keep myself in check and because I'm using that as encouragement, or am I using it as a way for me to gain a certain allure in front of other people?
Yeah. No, yeah. And like the key distinction, like one of the things I want to like emphasize in what you said was the reason it's important to look at it from an individual perspective is because it's not for anyone else. No one cares why you're practicing. Like the topic of this episode is literally practicing for appearances, but no one really cares why you're practicing. It's about yourself and art. It's questioning yourself and saying, am I just practicing for appearances, or am I actually trying to gain some kind of value out of this, whether it be through soul, whether it be through like mental, physical, emotional, whatever it is.
I know this is like your forte, but I think it also links to intentionality. Yeah. Of like, even if you are practicing, once again, if I am doing my ruku a little bit longer, if I am doing my sujood a little bit longer, because I would want to do those things. It's just maybe I forget, we're in a rush. Yeah. But I'm doing it because I know people are watching. But
you're also wasting your time if you're doing it for other people. Yeah. Like you're not pulling away a benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's whether I'm doing those things intentionally with the intention that I'm doing this for myself, and I'm just using the encouragement of other people, or is the intention behind it that I'm just doing this for other people, but I don't really have that khushu or that awareness when I'm praying. And I use prayer as a good example because it's an easy example to imagine in our heads. Like we're praying, there's people around us, and they're talking or they're reading Quran or they're watching. Or
especially again, it's easy to use if you're born into a Muslim family and from the childhood you see people pray.
Yeah, that's like the most public thing that we do.
Yeah, and it's 5 times a day, so it's not exactly like you miss it or anything. You see it when it's in your eyes. Yeah. So, so let's dive into this. When was the first time you actually became conscious that you started doing things from an Islamic perspective for other people, in a sense? Is that the best way I can put that question? Like when did you realize, hey, this is a problem? Like I don't really care about, like I don't understand why I'm praying Sunnah. I wouldn't usually do it on my own, but I just pray with a group of people, and I'm now praying Sunnah just because. And then how do you distinguish that away from like these guys bolster my iman and because of them, yes, I am praying, but it still is for myself versus they're watching, I want to come off as holy and pious, right? So there's 2 ways to take it, which is why I'm saying like it's really internal like matter. You have to
it's on a spectrum too. There are different levels to it. Like it's not just like one size fits all. It's either you're practicing for a parents or you're practicing for yourself. Sometimes we can use, like I said, using the judgment of others as a way to keep yourself in check or to keep others in check. And by others in check, I mean the others' perception of you in check. Right. So I think for me personally, like the first time I was aware that maybe there is a level of me doing something in appearances was when I was like sort of getting into middle school. Because as a kid, like you do a lot of things for appearances. Like I as a kid I would want to fast all 30 days of Ramadan because I knew it was right, and I knew it was Ramadan and I knew I wanted to fast.
But you also get praise for it.
But I'd get praise for it. And I think that's totally fine. I think when you're a kid, that's a great way for the community to support you and to put you on the right track. Because if people praise you, then that's gonna be a reward. And you're a kid, you don't know. Sure. Like you're a kid. Yeah. But I think just going into middle school, I realized I'm still fasting all 30 days of Ramadan, but no one's giving me any praise. Do I keep that was the fork in the road. Do I keep fasting or do I stop fasting because I was only doing it for the praise? And alhamdulillah, like I was able to find the iman within myself to be like, I'm doing this for myself, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, to get the rewards and to do because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me to. So I kept fasting, alhamdulillah. But I think also one of the other times that came up was prayer. Prayer was the biggest thing for me because like when you're a kid, you rush through prayer a lot. Like that's like your kids. So, and then as I grew older, I realized I'm aware of other people praying now. I'm aware of the speed at which other people are praying. When you're a kid, you're just praying because it's like everyone else is praying, and then your parents tell you to pray, and then you do it really fast, and you go watch TV or whatever. But when I became older, I was like, wait, I can't pray fast anymore because there's people around me who are praying slower. So now another fork in the road. Do I pray slower because I want to pray slower, or do I pray slower because I want other people to see me as praying slower and no one calls me out on it? Right. And alhamdulillah, once again, it went the right way, but it could have totally gone the other way, and like it was very like 50-50 teetering. And it's like, once again, this is why I think this episode is about the personal struggles within us, because everyone's going to encounter a fork in the road. I believe at some point where everyone who grew up in a Muslim family, if you grew up in a Muslim family going through the motions, everyone's going to come to that fork in the road where at some point you'll gain the awareness that you're doing something, and now you realize I have a choice. I can continue to do it because that's what my family does. That's what I want. That's why That's what's been going on. Or you can do it because you want to do it and because you want the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with you.
And as Katie mentioned, that's the only way it's going to be sustainable too.
Absolutely.
Because there will be a point in time when everyone around you either outgrows you, moves to a different location, passes away. So then there's only one thing that's consistent and remnant during the entire time, and that is if you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which comes back to the intention of why you're even doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about you? When did you ever have the epiphany of?
I think it was college.
College?
Yeah, because for me, my tough years were high school.
Mm-hmm. Like the first 2 years when you were in CC or when you came to USC?
When I came to USC.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first, throughout high school, I didn't really focus on any of this stuff. Like it was a very rough period of my life, right? Yeah. And I was more grappling of am I Muslim or not? Yeah. That's what I was grappling with. And then in college was in COVID year happened and all that stuff happened. But when I got here to campus, I think within the first 4 weeks, there was a point in time where I was praying and I was like, oh man, why did I just pray Sunnah, right? Then I bring up prayer too because that was my direct experience. Because
I think it's a very common experience. At least some of my friends that I've talked to, it's a very common experience because it's such a public thing, and then just like that it becomes private. Yeah. And you're like, do I keep going?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not like I wasn't praying Sunnah independently. At this point, I was I was pretty confident in my Islam. It was a lot better position than where it was a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, I kind of felt like I was trying to pray Sunnah because I wanted to come off as holy in a sense, or this guy prays everything, right? And I think the part of that was also due to the fact that I was educating myself in Islam, in a religious perspective as well as a historical perspective.
I really want to touch on that really quick. Education, I think, is important because especially when I came to that fork in the road every time, I would have to go back and be like, why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this?
Exactly. And alhamdulillah, I had a family where I learned while I was doing things from an early age, but not everyone gets that opportunity. Some people, their parents just tell them to do it and they do it, and then when that fork in the road comes, they're not armed with the knowledge to make that decision.
Exactly.
And if you have no knowledge, then there's no reason for you to do it for yourself. You can just let it go. And obviously, especially because usually these epiphanies happen when you're in your teenage rebel years, and in those years, you're very much the human mind is very much in the state of show me the facts or not, or it's nothing. And we grew up in a culture where it's useful in science because without facts, science doesn't exist. But the thing is, with religion, when you don't have the facts, similarly, you're gonna make the wrong decision for yourself. So I also think that it's really important that when you get to those forks in the road, to seek out resources, and also for the Muslim community to be more open with those resources and to be more open with the reasoning of why we do things.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly what happened. So when I was researching, but when I was trying to understand different aspects of Islam, one thing I stumbled across was modesty in the sense of mental modesty, not overdoing it for other people and
boasting, right?
Being private about it. And when I started praying, when I did that prayer, when I prayed Sunnah that day, I realized internally I didn't really feel like doing it. Now we all feel like that sometimes when it's it feels like we don't want to keep praying extra if you don't have time, right? But why did I do it? It was not I want to train myself. It was not I'm doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though I don't feel like it right now. It was I don't feel like it, but everyone else is here. I might as well do it. I didn't realize there was a problem at the beginning when I started. That's when I noticed it.
Usually in the beginning, it's not really a problem.
It becomes a real big problem when it becomes it's the choice between what is my motivation of praying in the first place. Yeah. Right.
Which is why it works really well when you're a kid, when you're a little kid. Yeah. I honestly think that's how it should be. Yeah. Because when you're a little kid, you don't really have the higher level of brain functioning to reason through these things.
But when you're older, you can actually go you can reason through it, and you can go educate yourself. Yeah. And that education is really important. So that's one of the things.
Or you can not educate yourself and just leave and just let it go.
But I'm saying the only way you can stick to it is if you come up with a good enough reason. Mm-hmm. And everyone will have different reasons. Some people really connect with still talking about prayer. My spirituality. Okay. So for me, I felt Islam. I felt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I was praying. I still do. Mm-hmm. And it's just spiritually, it just holds I believe my soul is just so filled by it. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. That's my reasoning. But
my reasoning was I took life as a video game. So good deeds and bad deeds. So growing up early on, I was taught a lot about oh, you get one good deed for this, one bad deed for this. And alhamdulillah, the only reason I even have this framework now is because I was taught this when I was a kid. When you're a kid, you love video games. You love getting points, losing points. So it was like, in my head, I could think like, oh, if I do this, then like, I get more in my bucket.
But like, as you got older, didn't you need to like educate yourself as to like more and more? So like, that's why I think Islam also promotes knowledge and education.
That framework stayed with me, but it was more about, now I learned about the consequences of what happens, and that drove me even more to fill up my bucket. That's okay, kind of what kept me going.
Yeah. That's also that's all, like that ties in with why Islam, I think, proactively says educate yourself and grow your knowledge, because it's hard to do something if you're not growing in it, right? So eventually everyone feels stagnated with the like praying. Praying is a great example for this entire conversation. Yeah. But my recommendation to them usually is, if you're trying to feel more and feel different, learn a different surah. If you're trying to concentrate better during namaz, or learn what the meaning is, right? If you're so there's different aspects of education too. Like you can take it in different directions. Like
learning the meaning of Fatiha was really transformative for me when it comes to praying.
We used to go to a Sunday school, and they would make us recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Arabic every morning, and then in English. And I think that is the most useful thing that school taught me in 5 years. Because they taught me that, and they taught me that batak means duck in Arabic. But other than that,
very useful knowledge.
I don't remember anything else. But I think just based on that one like surah in the morning, like it kind of showed me how much it changes your life if you do understand it. And better than understand it, you don't need to know it word for word. You just need to know, what is this surah trying to like convey message wise. Now again, different people have different levels. I personally really love just like, I get lost inside Arabic when I'm listening to it or when I'm reciting, so I can maintain concentration during prayer even if I don't know the meaning, just because I feel that like
Arabic's a beautiful language in general.
It's Quranic Arabic. Quranic Arabic, like I can listen to it and I don't get tired and it just fills me. Whereas I know the other people on the other hand can't maintain concentration during namaz, and that's completely valid.
And there's a multitude of reasons for that. So finding out the reason that's causing that for you is going to be a personal journey.
Yeah, and once you do, then it comes back to changing your motivation for praying, which changes from, sorry, my mind just went blank. But it changes from practicing it for appearances versus practicing it for a reason now.
Yeah.
Right? So now I practice because my soul gets filled. You might practice because you gain some kind of education on Quranic verses for it. If you want to talk about practicing for appearances, let's say saying subhanallah or alhamdulillah after, or when you sneeze, right? Are you saying alhamdulillah only when you're with Muslim friends or your parents? Do you say it when you're in your room by yourself?
I had this story for this. So when I was a kid, I wouldn't really say it because I kind of just like, it was more of a thing that like I knew I should say, so I was like, maybe I'm just saying in my head. But then as I grew older, I realized, am I really saying it or am I not saying it? And but when I was amongst Muslims, I would always say it because like
you're with Muslims.
Yeah. But then now it's like transitioned to a point where every time I say it, I just say alhamdulillah because I now have this awareness and intentionality, and I'm not just maybe I was doing it for appearances, maybe it was just I subconsciously thought I was saying it because it's been so ingrained and it's become so routine. Yeah. So there's a lot of different reasons for it, but definitely I relate to that.
The first time I said it probably like alone in a room was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And when I started alone in a room, this was my dorm room. Yeah. Like I kind of looked up and like, there's no one around me. Why did I just say that? And then I realized its purpose is independent. So that's what I think is really cool about like Islam as a religion is it is supposed to be private. It is supposed to be about
encouragement is good, but it's not. It can't be It can't be the main driving force of your deen.
Yeah, it's about like community is supposed to bolster your own deen, but in the end, it is still about improving your own deen. So, my like technique to go about like low iman and trying to then do things for other people, like practice for appearance, is education and like finding out, oh, this is the reason that I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. Now, then the question becomes, how do you educate yourself, right? Because that's a big problem, and no one really knows how to do that. That was something that I
depends on where you live,
depends on where you live,
you have access to,
and
finding the right resources.
Yeah, and like in Quran, even in English translation, is still hard to read. It's hard to understand.
Yeah.
It's not hard to read. It's hard to understand.
Yeah.
Like you can't really break it down. And then it's like, where do you go and find all the hadith breakdowns? Where do you go find the sunnah breakdowns? Yeah. Where do you go find fiqh? And for me, a lot of that came from like Jummah, and a lot of that came from scholars who talked at masjids. Yeah. It didn't really come from online resources. It didn't really come from the Quran or text stuff. It came from scholars talking and teaching and then watching them. And
it's been the tradition for years now that like
old tradition.
Masajids are like the hubs of knowledge.
Yeah.
And for now, and inshallah, like online resources are getting better, and infrastructure around that is getting better. But for now, I think the best way to seek knowledge is to be part of the community.
Right.
Find your local Muslim community, and when you reach that fork in the road, understand. It's like any decision. You got to make an educated decision whenever you're making a decision. You can't just go with whatever. Just because there's a lack of knowledge doesn't mean that thing doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So making sure that you get the knowledge before you make that decision will, inshallah, lead you to the right way. And that was what helped me when I was a kid, dealing with those forks in the road.
Yeah. I also think we should mention, like, practicing for appearances isn't just it should be limited to just about you.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't concern yourself about others practicing for appearance.
That is the ideal that we should all aspire to.
Because that gets very toxic.
Yeah, it does.
Like, if you're like, this person is just doing it because we're here, or this person is not really a good Muslim. Who are you to say you're not a good Muslim, right? Yeah. Like, how do you know who this dude is? Like, sure, he may not pray in private, and you may know that somehow. I don't know how you know that.
You probably don't.
Yeah, you probably don't. Or maybe you're roommates with someone.
Okay. But even if you are roommates, they might not pray in the room, but they might pray somewhere else.
Sure.
You don't know.
You don't know. And even if they, like, let's say 100% for a fact, they don't pray independently, but they do pray when they're all with the other guys.
That's still
First
prayer.
of all, that's still prayer. And not only, like, is it like, he still did it.
Yeah.
He did it for a reason. If anything, be happy that you and everyone else are the reason he's praying.
Absolutely.
Now, that individual, and I'm using a he as a generic term, right? But that individual himself should look into himself.
Also because we're both guys on this podcast, so.
Yeah. He, her, whoever. If they look into themselves, right, they should be the one looking into themselves and saying, why am I doing this? And if you know a friend like that and you're friends with them, you can initiate, you can ask
if you're
them.
a close friend with them.
Close friend with them, yeah. If initiate it in like a different manner. Like one of the ways I like to do it is, well, what do you feel when you pray? And just talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Some people, if you're close friends, like I've had close friends tell me, they're like, honestly, I'm so distracted I can't concentrate. And then we talk about that. But, that's how you initiate something like that. You don't say, yo, you're just practicing because we're here. You don't usually do it. And you don't call them out in front of their friends, right?
Also, this is like a whole other topic too about how to approach people and how to correct people. But like you saying that to that person is you're driving them away from Islam. Yeah. When you could be driving them towards Islam by encouraging them and by appreciating the fact that they're praying with you all and being a brother or a sister with you all and driving them towards a direction that could get them to pray more, not calling them out on it.
In my opinion, in Islam, the difference between practicing for appearance, like not difference, okay. In my opinion, like within Islam, is that, all right, cut this out. Okay. In my opinion, within Islam, there's two sides of the coin. There is practicing for appearance, and then there is feeling Islam. And I feel like there's two different sides of the coins because when you practice for appearance, it's shallow, it's one-sided, it's one level, it's very, just for others. It's just I was born into this.
Just going through the motions.
Just going through the motions. But if you feel it, that is where I think Islam resides, right? You should feel prayer. You should feel the Quran. You should feel being helpful to other people. When you're, doing acts of charity, you should feel Islam in that, right? That's a component of Islam. When you stop yourself from cussing, when you stop yourself from being a hypocrite, you should feel Islam. Yeah. So, if you want to talk about it with others, you also talk about the feeling. You don't talk about the action, right? Why do you think we started to turn so many kids away from Islam? Like so many young men and women.
A lot of the corrections that come through are like your ruku's not long enough.
You're not wearing the hijab. You're not you're not doing this. You're not doing this. Like you need to do this. But
those are all important things. But when you're first
they're important things to address. But we're talking about how to address.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
So we should not be addressing is you are not doing it right. We tell them how do you feel with this thing. How many? Okay, so we all know sisters like around like from MSA, from our blood sisters or whatever. How many do we actually know why or what they feel about not wearing the hijab? Nothing. Yeah. No one knows. No one's ever asked, right? Yeah. No one's ever asked like genuinely for non-hijabi sisters. Yeah. How do you feel not wearing the hijab? No one cares. Yeah. But everyone's like you should be wearing the hijab. right? So you need to address the feeling, because if you can evoke feeling,
if you can isolate what that feeling is, then that can be a way to guide someone towards what towards themselves realizing
and then you
what they want to feel.
And you show them the different aspects of feeling within Islam. So if you're talking about prayer and you talk to a brother and you're like, what do you feel when you pray? And the brother's like, oh, I get really distracted when I pray. Then you can be like, you can be like, interesting. And you can be like, I feel this way when I pray. And he's like, how do you do that? Because I've had brother ask me that in our MSA. And I talked about the spirituality aspect of it, but I also mentioned you can go from the mental aspect, because I know he was more logical thinking.
Yeah.
So that's how you can drive and help someone go one way, and that's how you can push. Again, there's two sides of the coin. There's the side of feeling, and then there's the side of practicing for principles.
Also, like going on to what you're saying, it's like there's a complexity to Islam that we often don't address. We see someone praying a certain way, or take the hijab for instance, not wearing the hijab, or wearing the hijab a certain way. But there's more complexity behind what goes on in a person's head than just doing something this way or doing something that way.
And see, that's why Allah is the only judge, because only He can fully determine what intention is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as human beings,
we can take the time to go through that with someone and not just call someone out
and derive it from their feelings.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because especially like I know when I was a kid, and there's certain things that when I would pray I wouldn't do correctly. No one would ask me, why are you doing that? They would just say, this is how you're supposed to do it. And of course, I was a kid, so they're adults. I was like, okay, yes sir, I'll do it. But it's more, but if someone had taken the time to be like, hey, why are you doing that? What do you feel when you're doing that?
Imagine you as a kid. Imagine someone asking you, how do you feel when you just pray? Now, as a kid, you might just straight up answer like, I don't know, I just did it, right? But that's what I got you thinking.
It gets you thinking.
At a young age.
Questions.
It's at a young age too. So you don't get slammed like a truck in middle or high school or college, and you're like, whoa, like I have an identity crisis.
Yeah.
You have to start questioning these things from age, and that's the issue with like bottle feeding Islam versus letting them mature through Islam, like raising kids as well.
Especially, I think it all comes down to having the ability to appreciate the complexity, because I think a lot of times we simplify things into yes or no, black and white. Wear the hijab, don't wear the hijab, pray this, pray right, pray wrong. When in reality everything lies in the middle, and people have certain thoughts. People, like, even when I was a kid, I was like, I had the thought maybe I should make the sujood longer. But no one wanted to take the time with me to process that and to get to a point where I would want to make my own sujood longer than just say, hey, your sujood should be longer. And I'm just like, yeah, I know, I'm trying to get to there, and I'm trying to decide how long it should be, what I should be saying during that time, and all these things. Like, these are all complexities that lie within there, and people have to take the time to get to know someone and get to that point where because no matter how much you preach Islam, a person has to accept it on their own. And sure, you can go through different methods and like you can like say it in different ways, but unless you take the time to understand why that person is doing what they're doing and what drives that person, that's the only way you can help someone. And I think that also goes for personally too, taking the time to deal with the conflicting opinions that you have within yourself. A lot of times, whether it be the hijab, whether it be salah, whether it be anything in Islam, I've definitely talked to a lot of brothers and sisters who have a lot of thoughts about certain things that they want to be doing in Islam, but they don't take the time to really process those thoughts. And I think that goes for every single Muslim out there, taking the time to really sit with your thoughts and realize, okay, what do I feel about this? What do I not feel about this? What information is out there? And that's the only way that you can get to a point where you are at peace with yourself. I truly believe. And it took me a while too, and I'm still going through. I still sit down sometimes and I'm like, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? How do I get better at what I'm doing? Where do I want to be?
Yeah, and you have to do that to also like let go of the things that you are doing. So you're like, why am I doing this? Not only if you want to bolster it and make it stronger.
It all comes back to intentionality.
Why am I doing this? Also because I want to stop this thing, right? So you can't stop something unless you got a real good reason for it, especially if it becomes a habit, right? Yeah. Let's say something like drinking, right? Like if you're drinking, the only way to stop drinking is if you got a real good reason. Like it's hard to come up with something that's addictive, right? And so in cases like that, like apart from getting like help like in a professional setting, right? You have to genuinely sit down and ask yourself, like, what do I feel when I drink? Why do I want to stop drinking, right? And then, tying that also back to like not doing it for the appearance of it, right? And not doing it for those other reasons. So
I remember one of our scholars at our MSA was talking about first principles and setting that foundation of, and this is the same way that I go through my own personal like epiphanies and realizations and thoughts that I do with is, First of all, you need a foundation to build off of. So what are my foundations? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, the 5 pillars of Islam. What do I already do in my daily life? Well, I pray my 5 daily prayers, I fast during Ramadan, and all these things. And I set the foundation for myself. What are the things I know for a fact that I do and I believe in? And then what are the things I'm unsure about? And then tying it back to the first principles that I already have. And this is not something that happens in a day. It's not something that happens in a month. This is something that you're constantly thinking about, and it's a constant thought process, because without being aware, without having that intention, without going through the thought process of why you're doing certain things, you'll always be practicing for either for appearance or just going through the motions, because you're supposed to be going through the motions. And the same thing you were saying about feeling Islam, you can only feel Islam if you take the time to understand what you're feeling. And I'm sure, like, just like you said, you took the time to understand your spirituality, and you took the time to pray, and you took the time to do the things, and then you were able to go through that thought process where you were able to reach a state where you were able to feel Islam.
It's about changing your motivations of why you're doing things.
Absolutely.
Right. So it always has to be derived from you and your connectedness to either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, Islam as a whole. I should just say Islam as a whole. It's deriving your connection to Islam as a whole. And in those reasons, you will find why to be. The same way that when it comes to choosing a career, yeah, you can tie in Islam into that too. But let's talk about it from like agnostic point of view, like without like worrying about Islam. What do you look at? It's about you and your connectedness to what your purpose in this world is. Yeah. Right? Why do some people not want to be engineers? Why do some people not want to be doctors? Why do some people not want to be this or that? Right? It's because they don't feel like a person wants fulfillment. There's no fulfillment in that career. Same way in Islam, the only way you're going to be able to do things, whether it's pray, whether it's read the Quran, whether it's be a good person, whether it's stop being a hypocrite or cussing, there's a million different things you can choose to you should try to be, is if you feel that connectedness to Islam, and that becomes your motivation. Because just as money is not enough of a incentive to keep you in a career for 50, 60 years, like money alone, right? Yeah. The same exact way, and it keep you in that career happy and healthy. The same exact way in Islam, doing it for appearance, doing it because your mom and dad told you so, doing it without thought is not enough to keep you. One day they'll be like, why am I doing this? Forget it, right? So why not preemptively, when you have that feeling, if you haven't been lucky enough with someone who has guided you through it, educate yourself, make yourself develop a reason that deals with your connectedness with Islam, whether it be spiritual. It should be all four, which is spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. So it should be a combination of all four of those. But whichever one is stronger, lean towards that.
I think the easiest first steps to take towards that is just, obviously, I talked about like sitting with your thoughts, thinking through them, but obviously there's a certain limit to what's in your brain already. Sure. And that's the point where you go out and get more knowledge. Right. You go out and learn more, and you go out into your community. Obviously, like, that doesn't mean that you should like just go online and trust everything and every single person you hear, but make sure that the people you're learning from are credible. But it's important to be constantly gaining knowledge and constantly learning more about Islam, because that's the only way you are going to get to a point, and you and myself as well. This is why I'm always looking up new things and like learning things, asking questions, researching online about Islam and from trustable, reputable sources. I try, inshallah. But gaining knowledge allows us to access more parts of ourselves, which is what I believe. When I learn new things, I'm able to sit down and be like, okay, what do I think about this? Yeah. Whether it's a certain political issue that Islam has a certain stance on, whether it's a certain way, a certain thing that I should be doing in my life, a certain dua that I need to learn. Once I learn it, I'm like, okay, what do I feel about it? Well, how does it make me feel? What are aspects of my life and my memories and things like that, my life experiences that I've gone through, that connect back to this, and how does that make me feel? And you need to corroborate that with your common sense, because Islam also is a common sense kind of religion. Like, you apply it to your time, so you apply it to your context. Yeah. For example, just a couple, like last semester, one of our scholars at the MSA was doing a series on a certain dua that he was discussing, and it was a dua that you're supposed to read, like the dua that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to use to like during when he used to pray the Hajj. And then I was learning this dua. I learned it, and I had it on my phone, and I would use it whenever I was praying my dua. But it took me at least like 10 times after doing it, and this was in Ramadan too. So whenever I would pray the Hajj, I would read the dua. Like after praying the Hajj, I would read the dua, and the first two or three times I just read it because like that's what you're supposed to do. And then as I was reading it, and then I would walk back to my dorm, right? So I would pray the hajj in the prayer space, read the dua, and then I'd be walking back to my dorm, and that during that walk I'd be thinking, okay, how did that dua make me feel? What did I ask for after I read that dua, and how does that connect back to it? And what do each of these things make me feel? We also realize that like not everything has to be like perfectly connected too. Some things will just make you feel a certain way and will invoke feelings of certain experiences that you've had. And realizing that is going to get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is going to be able to have you feel Islam, like you said, feel that there is beauty in this religion and that there is reasoning for me to continue what I'm doing. And that's only when we can build intentionality and stay away from practicing for appearances and practicing for ourselves and for Jannah and to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Deep. I didn't really have a follow-up to that, so I just like listened in. But yeah. I never really thought about the why of things. I think until college, but I think the earlier you start that, the better it is. Absolutely. And this is one of the indicators, like within Islam, is a good place to start. Even you should be doing it. I think your life significantly improves when you start questioning the why, with everything that you're doing. It's like the balance between overthinking and then being ignorant.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like falling in between that line. And it's like questioning it enough so you know and understand, and then the remaining part that gets you overthinking, that's where you throw faith.
On Yaqeen Institute's Double Take podcast, one of the scholars was talking about something called a tolerance to uncertainty, and that Muslims have, like when you start learning about religion, like yes, there are certain things that will give you a specific reason for doing something, and then when, like you said, like that there's a level of thought and processing and internal reflection that happens. There's also a level of overthinking, and when you get to a level of overthinking, it's important to have a tolerance to uncertainty. Realize that some things are going to be uncertain, and that's because of many reasons. And the reason that I tell myself is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made my brain. So there are things that are going to be outside of my level of processing. That's why I personally process it. There's many ways to process it, and that once again requires us to go and seek knowledge for ourselves.
And the more you seek knowledge and educate yourself, the better you get at processing things.
But also realize at a certain point that, not even at a certain point, but whenever setting those first principles, that's why I believe setting those first principles is important. Because when you have those certain first principles that you have adopted and you believe in, then it's easy to, whenever something new comes in to your frame of thought, you're able to have that tolerance to uncertainty and be like, hey, I don't know what this is, but I know what this is at the bottom of my foundation, and this new thing that came in, I'm able to tolerate that uncertainty, rely on my first principles, and get through life until I'm able to process it. Or if I'm not able to process it, Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. And this is a multi-year lifetime thing that it's a journey that people have to go through, and that I myself am still going through. You take it day by day, and that's where I believe the middle ground lies between not reflecting at all and practicing appearances and overthinking is taking it day by day, having a tolerance to uncertainty, and seeking knowledge, and also reflecting on the things that you are learning.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And that's also what reduces burnout.
Absolutely.
Because you don't end up pushing yourself too far, but again with the ignorancy, like you don't stay ignorant, and that keeps you active. Actually, you start waking up with a bit more of a purpose.
Yeah.
Like even for Fajr, like one of the things that helped me get up for Fajr was kind of understanding like the actual benefits of getting up for Fajr. Now for me, that was from a physical and a mental perspective. My brain was fresh, my brain was clear. First thing I'm doing is starting my day is by prayer. This is right before sunrise, like right before the light comes out. That kind of from a physical perspective, I really, really like that. And from a mental perspective, I really like that. So that's what I use for my...
I want to start to look into that. Because I think for me, waking up Fajr, the biggest thing is like, if I get less sleep now, then I'm going to I want to not have enough energy throughout the day. But I guess that's where I need to start implementing my tolerance to uncertainty and be like, it's okay. Like I'm uncertain about how much energy I'm going to have during the day, but I know for a fact that praying Fajr is going to bring me more reward and bring me pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what I want. So.
Exactly. And it's not like you can't go back to sleep afterwards, right? But the thing is, it's a way that you kind of like
psych yourself
activate. Like you started your day, even if you go back to sleep, you slept for another hour or two, maybe even 3. I don't know who 2, 3, but maybe if you slept an hour, 2 or 3 after Fajr, right? Your day still started 3 hours ago, right? When you woke up, you already have something done, which is something that's supposed to fill your soul. It's supposed to get you activated. So to me, that's how I convince myself for that. So
also, I think another great analogy for the whole tolerance to uncertainty thing is like take like a science class for instance.
Sure.
When I get my syllabus, I look at it. There's so many different concepts. There's so many different titles.
Yeah.
There's things that there's words I haven't heard of yet.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. But if you just scroll a little bit up and just not look at the stuff at the bottom, look at day one, and then you know for a fact that the stuff you're going to learn is going to be useful. It's going to be practical. It's going to be something that you need. Yeah. That is your first principle. Yeah. Your tolerance to uncertainty should come in realizing, okay, today is day one. Next step is uncertain, but I'm going to take it day by day.
Exactly.
And similarly to how that's a great way to succeed in your classes, similarly that's a great way to succeed in life and succeed in business.
Yeah, that's a great analogy too, because just like you build your knowledge in that sense, you also have to build your knowledge as to why you're doing things. And it doesn't happen. It does not. Yeah, it does not happen in one day. You don't listen to this podcast, and after it, you're like, yes, I know my purpose in this world. My brain is lit up. I know exactly why I'm doing namaz. I know exactly this. No, you're going to be working 0.00001% every single day for the next year, and then you're going to wake up for Fajr one day and you're going to be like, this is easy. I love this, right? Like that's what it takes. Like it doesn't happen overnight. And it's like this delusion that it does. Yeah. Which I think is really the fault of the preaching. Mm-hmm. Like through like even like khutbahs and different things. Like everything seems to now. Yeah. When in reality it takes years. I mean, I think that's just a problem with like the way our society does it. But then again, if you start with, if you have a kid, if you start asking questions from a young age and get them inquisitive, then it's less demanding at like our age. But at our age, at this point, we're reflecting on these things. Most of you guys listening to this are reflecting on these things now for the first time, and you got 20 years to catch up on. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's why we feel overwhelmed.
And also realizing that like the preaching that happens, yes, it sometimes it can be filled with a sense of urgency that might be too fast for our personal journey. Yeah. But at the same time, I think the way to deal with that, and the way I deal with it, is like that's the part. That's the seeking knowledge part. Now I got to do the personal reflection part, which sometimes means taking some of the information you got and just throwing it away for now. Yeah. Leaving that to your tolerance of uncertainty, leaving that to the uncertainty section of your brain, and then focusing on the bits that you can focus on, and take that. And that's a whole like practice of personal reflection. I'm a really like big proponent of personal reflection, because I think it really helped me. For me, it was during my college up season. That was the first time that I had to like sit down and be like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I going to college? Why am I doing all this stuff? And alhamdulillah, like I was able to process a lot of things, and ever since then it's like I'm a big proponent for personal reflection. I think it's a big part of succeeding in Islam, is because if you're not able to take in what you've received knowledge wise or pressure wise or whatever, but if you're able to amalgamate all that and process through it, then it's easier to sort of separate that into stuff that first principles, things that I do know, my tolerance to uncertainty, that uncertain part of my brain that I'm going to tolerate and I'm going to take it day by day, and the part where I'm just sitting down, my thoughts and processing. Those are the three things that I think, those are the three ways to split of my brain when it comes to Islam.
No, yeah, I completely agree with that.
I just think it's a great framework when processing Islam. So just like once again, like I said, Islam has a lot of complexity that I don't think we often appreciate. Just like with the khutbahs, we see a lot of the like you said, like the sense of urgency that might not be at the same level as certain people's journey.
It doesn't leave much time to process.
There's a lot of complexity, so taking that time to process is really important.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of evenly spaced. Now that I think about it, I'm going to try something. So if we have khutbahs every Friday, right, you have a full week before the next Friday. So you got a full week to process what they talked about in that khutbah.
And store some things away. You don't have to process everything all at once, because that can be overwhelming.
Yeah. I think one of the beneficial things like younger leaders are doing. Like the other day we were in the Jummah. His name, the guy who gave the khutbah at our last Jummah was actually one of our previous guests on this podcast. We'll probably bring him on again. Sure. His name is Sayyid Husani, but he was giving a khutbah and he gave actionable things. Yeah. Now, apart from him,
I love that part. Yeah, the whole practical part.
I've never, apart from him, I've never heard anyone in a khutbah give like real actionable things that could be relevant to someone young. And I think the benefit is because he grew up. He went to UC Riverside, which is a college like 30 minutes from here. Yeah. Right. Like he went through college. He knows what actionable means.
It's still longer than 30 minutes, but anyway.
Yeah. Is it farther than 30 minutes?
It's close to where I live.
Riverside?
Yeah.
Man.
It's east from where I live, and I already live pretty east.
I lived here my whole life. I've never been to Riverside. But anyways, so like he gives actionable things, right? So I think you should take the time to process and think about why you're doing things, and then give them small.
Actually, as an example, the khutbah last Friday.
Yeah.
So he was talking a lot about he was. I'm trying to remember, but there was a part about politics in there and about addressing the issues in your community.
Right.
And that has so many extrapolations because it can start with addressing the issues in your small community, addressing the issues in your larger community, getting to global politics, national and international politics. Yeah. There's like some, and like my brain just exploded at that point because I was thinking so much, and then that's when I had to be like, okay, wait, hold up, I can deal with the small part, right? I can deal with the part about fixing the issues in your local community. I can deal with that part right now, and all the other stuff is going to the uncertainty area.
Right.
That's for later. Yeah. That's for when I got time to process it. I got an exam on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So let's put that away for now.
Sure.
I'll process this little thing, and then I'll move on with that life, and then I'm gonna unpack that later on, inshallah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do that repetitively.
You do that repetitively, and your uncertainty box might shrink and expand as time goes on.
But you grow.
And that's building up a tolerance, just like how when you work out, you're building a tolerance to weight.
Yeah.
You, as you shrink and expand your uncertainty box, you're going to build up that tolerance to uncertainty.
Yeah.
And being a good Muslim will eventually, working on that will lead you to becoming a good Muslim, having a large tolerance to uncertainty.
Yeah. And
so many uncertain things in this world.
Undoubtedly, you over time you will grow, and then and most importantly, the reason you're doing all this is so you don't lose that will, or you don't lose that motivation, and you don't lose your discipline as to why you're doing everything, right? So, because if you stay stagnated too long in anything, it starts getting boring, it starts becoming monotonous, and then you don't want to do it anymore. It's not exciting, it's not fun, it's not this, it's not that, whatever your reason may be, right? And I truly believe that's the same thing with like Islamic things. Like, no one said prayer just by prayer is going to be perfect for the rest of your life. That's not the purpose of prayer, right? The purpose, there's millions of purposes of prayer. It's a way to step out of the day. It's like 5 minutes a day, every single 5 times a day. You know, that's one reason. It's like a meditational thing, right? It's a spiritual thing, right?
Connection to Allah.
Connection to Allah. You practice new Quran ayahs when you're praying. Right?
There's also like new research on like radiation and like how when we put our phones to our ears and stuff, there's a lot of radiation going to our heads, and when you put it to the ground, it's like grounding it. There's been preliminary studies on all that, so that's the reason.
I am not going to make any. I plead the fifth on that one, so I got no idea what
there's actual scientific literature on that, but it's in preliminary states right now. But
interesting.
It's out there.
Sure. That could be one of the many reasons. Probably let's shift to the bottom of the list for now.
Yes. But like you said, there's a million reasons.
There's a million reasons, right? And everyone can find their own reasons within it, and you accumulate those reasons over time.
Yeah.
Meaning the actions become more and more meaningful. So in the beginning, you might, as a young kid, you might not know why you pray. Somebody asks you. Maybe you got a younger brother or sister, right? Maybe you go to the masjid. Maybe you're a camp counselor. Yeah. Actually, I've got a camp coming up. And, oh my God, I hope none of my kids see this. Okay, I have a camp coming up, and I'm a counselor for in Labor Day weekend. And like, you know, I genuinely just gave myself the idea here right now too. Was like, let me go ask them after namaz one day, like what they felt. Who knows where that triggers for them, right? Absolutely. Has anyone ever asked them that? Who knows, right? They're like middle schoolers, or my group is high schoolers, but they're like 10th graders.
Yeah.
But no one probably ever had a deep discussion as like, what did you feel? Why do you pray?
Yeah.
What was the motivation for it, right? It's like discovering those things, and you need to discover, and you need to question it, and you need to grow your knowledge on these things. Otherwise, you're not gonna have the motivation to do it, right? And that, you know, that's also like what gets you from point A to point B by the end of your life.
Yeah.
So also, if you're 20 or 30 or 40, from a logistical point of view, like, nothing bad happens, right? Like, you know, inshallah, nothing bad happens. You have still not lived the amount of years you are going to live.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say until the age of 40. What is the average age in America?
The average age that's like estimated for our ummah is 70. That's what I've heard.
So let's say majority of you are like 30 and younger.
Yeah.
You're probably going to live more than you've already lived. Inshallah. In that case, you're not late to the game, right? You got double the time. You got higher brain capacity. Let's just remove the first 10 years of life when you weren't really thinking about any of this.
Yeah.
You're not behind, right?
Yeah.
But you are going to have to do it 0.1% every single day. It's not going to happen overnight.
Also, I know a lot of brothers and sisters that I've talked to who come from families where they've been practicing a lot just because their friends are practicing, but they haven't. But they don't know if they want to believe in Islam or not. A lot of times when I'm helping them process it, the first step is to, like, I'll be like, okay, praying 5 times a day, that's like a good first step to take. And they're like, well, if I'll pray, but like, what about this political issue and like Islam's stance on it? What about this thing? What about that thing? And it's sensory overload for them. And I totally get it, because like there's so many things that. First of all, the media doesn't really portray us the best way. So there's a lot of conflicting information there. There's a lot of conflicting information online. There's a lot of conflicting information from even like Muslim communities and like families and how different families believe certain things.
Yeah.
So all this conflicting information reaches this kid, and then now they don't know if they want to believe in Islam or not, and they don't even want to go pray first because they're all thinking about all these political states that Islam they think might have.
Yeah.
So I think to address that issue, I think once again, dividing your brain into 3 parts.
Yeah.
Starting with first principles. Allah is one. Muhammad is the La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Starting with that, and then putting certain things in that uncertainty box, I think is very, very important.
Yeah,
it's really important for me too, because without the uncertainty box, I would have kept thinking about those things. I would have never gotten to the thought process and to the reflection.
Right.
So.
And it's also you can tackle multiple things at once, but again, it's little by little. Again, you might get overwhelmed by the politics of Islam. If that's what interests you and you want to figure that out, go for it.
Yeah.
But it's going to take some time.
Yeah, and understand that you can still believe in the first principles of Islam and the ideals of Islam, doing your prayers and doing all the things that you know to the best of your knowledge that you should be doing, while still having uncertainty on certain things.
The same way you can pray even though you only pray once a day.
Yeah.
Just because you don't pray all 5 doesn't mean you just stop praying all 5.
Yeah.
If you can pray 1 or 2, pray 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Like do 0.1% every day.
And have that uncertainty that maybe I should pray the other 3 and then process that and then get to that one day.
Exactly. And don't be worried about like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to get to 5. Don't worry about that. No. If you do, great.
That's for the uncertainty box.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm gonna keep using the uncertainty box.
That uncertainty box is kind of the tawakkul, right? So if you're like, I want to go to get a master's or an MBA or med school or whatever, work, but
med school is a good one. So like I'm pre-med, inshallah. That's what I'm working towards, and like I don't want to get to med school, inshallah, but there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that because it's a very competitive field. There's a lot of things I got to do, and like I thought this one actually works because I've actually not put into the uncertainty box many times. When I was first doing this pre-med journey,
it overwhelmed you.
It's over. You saw my grades first year.
I forget your grades. I saw the way your personality was, who you were, how stressed you were, and I'm like, not even your grades are worth that kind of stress, right?
So now I've put it into uncertainty box. I'm like, inshallah, I'll work on it. That's the tawakkul Allah. I'm gonna focus on the things that I gotta do.
Yeah. And
I'm going to pull it out of that uncertainty box every once in a while, reflect on it a little bit, healthily, and then put it back.
When it's time.
Yeah. Take out a little piece of every time.
And tackle each 0.1%. Do 0.1% right over and over again, and it compounds pretty fast.
Exactly.
Growth is exponential. It's not exactly linear, so it gets better over time.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
We've covered a lot today. Hopefully.
Honestly, these mics are really cool. I didn't realize how dope they look. They're like.
They look really nice.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, alhamdulillah, today we covered my whole framework. I think it's a pretty good framework. I'm pretty proud of it.
Also, like just in general about why you're doing things, your motivation from an Islamic perspective.
Intention. It all comes back to intention.
It all comes back to intention. And that's what you will get judged on. So that's what you have to fine tune as a skill. It's a motor skill, you know? Yeah. It's like once you do it enough times, you'll get the hang of it.
I keep working day by day. I think that's going to be our tagline for almost every single episode.
Gotta keep working day by day.
Day by day.
I mean, that's true. So,
yeah, that's how anything happens.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Jazakallah khair for listening, for tuning in. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.